We've been talking for the past bit about the most recent efforts to manipulate or hamstring the census to provide some sort of electoral benefit to the right. Although understand that this effort has been ongoing since Donald Trump has gotten into office. Let's talk about the newest issues, and that's how prematurely ending the census count is gonna do significant damage, but not necessarily equally to all communities. So understand that federal funding for elections, education, free and reduced lunch programs, and other community programs is determined based on census data. So it touches on a lot of different programs, including the allocation of funds in a number of different ways. Now, because of delays caused by the pandemic, the federal government earlier this year extended the deadline for in-person follow-up. That's when you actually have somebody visit you to do the count, from mid-August to October 31st. But the administration abruptly announced last week that it would require data collection to end by September 30th instead. So they realized early on that because it's a pandemic, they can't do it in the normal time, so it was extended. For some reason, the government decided, oh no, you don't need all the time you think you need to get this done. We're gonna cut it off. And if that means that not everyone gets counted, well, boo-hoo, I guess that's on you. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the implications, but Emma, I'm curious about what your thoughts have been about the attempts to rig or manipulate or bias the census.
It's a part and parcel of an administration that politicizes even the most benign elements of governing. So they want immigrants and poorer people, and specifically Democratic voters as well, to be underrepresented and punish them for their beliefs, for their backgrounds. And we've seen this from just quotidian daily machinations and what normal presidents would kind of do whatever they want with and wouldn't pay attention to. But Trump has stacked his administration with white supremacists and extremists. And so this is what happens. It does trickle down. You do see, we've seen it with the CDC as well, and the collection of coronavirus data. This is what happens when you have an extremist and someone who doesn't really have empathy or connection to other human beings. So he's gonna implement his ideology every which way, even in bureaucratic ways that are supposed to be divorced from politics.
Yeah, unfortunately, and he's, as we'll get to, he's tried this in other ways. The end goal of all of their efforts when it comes to the census is to benefit Republicans and undercount Democrats or libs or people who might vote for those, basically because of the impact, particularly on allocation and proportion of political power. And so that is likely to happen. Now you might think, well, if they just don't have enough time to complete it, and if they cut off 10 or 20 or 30% of households, then why is that unfair in a political sense? I mean, they're just not finishing their job. It's because that the people that they're not going to be reaching are not evenly distributed. That's just not how it works. In terms of their ability to quickly get to certain groups, I've seen citations towards it's more difficult for them to do an accurate count for communities of color, people living in rural areas, those without permanent addresses, high poverty areas, immigrant communities, and places where government distrust is high. Some of those might be the same areas, but the idea is that those sorts of people are going to be reached last and least if we don't have an all-encompassing full census that has the time it takes.
And just quick, oh, sorry, John, I thought you were
continue.
Just a quick point too, just in poorer communities as well, they're more likely to be at work in a pandemic because they're working like wage jobs or essential worker jobs or minimum wage jobs that, so they may have been laid off as well, who knows? But a lot of people who can't afford to stay home when their jobs don't permit it aren't going to be if they're on the poorer side.
Exactly. And Skip, I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. The issue is that this is the most recent issue, is that they're artificially cutting the timeline. Like they didn't make the pandemic, although I guess they did make the pandemic worse and longer than it needed to be. But deciding arbitrarily that you're gonna stop the census before they say they're ready to be done, that is on the government. It's their choice, and they're doing it knowing who that's going to hurt. And bear in mind, how long is this gonna hurt those communities for? In less funding and less political power, literally seats that they'll have access to electing people into, for a decade. it's going to hurt them. Long after whoever wins in November is gone, or even possibly the person that succeeds them, it's still gonna be having these effects. And like I said, I'm gonna jump ahead. Last year, the US Supreme Court stopped the census from asking participants if they're American citizens, which activists and experts said would discourage undocumented people from participating, and which we found out thanks to the leak of, I believe, the daughter of one of the people putting together the scheme, was explicitly the goal, was to cut out certain types of people. And just last month, President Trump signed a memorandum in support of excluding the estimated number of undocumented immigrants in the country from the count used to apportion congressional districts, which he can't do in any way, but is obviously explicitly designed, despite the fact that it goes 100% against the clear wording of the Constitution, to arbitrarily deduct however many people they want from certain districts and not others. I mean, if they were able to go through with that in particular, like then the democracy is even, like, I know that it's sort of a sham now, but just let him decide who gets all the seats. I mean, what's the difference at that point if they can just decide how many people really count in any of these areas?
It's another part of the ideology of voter suppression and gerrymandering. And this is a way that we're seeing it done on the federal level, where you just say, no, those people don't count because one, I don't like them, and two, it doesn't help my cause of cementing my party's reign over the country for long. I mean, they're Machiavellian, and the Democrats do not have that kind of thinking on their side, except for a very select few people who want to win and want to play hardball. That's just not how Democrats view things. And in many ways that's good, but in many ways it's bad because Republicans and their far right ideology are overrepresented and also just propagandize and push towards people that would be more open to a populist economic message. And a lot of that also does fall on the Democrats to make that central to their platform as opposed to ancillary. And focusing on vague cultural issues that don't resonate. And we're gonna see, not to go on a rant about the Democrats, but one, if these voter suppression tactics work, if they can overwhelm what seems to be at this point a landslide victory for Joe Biden, which we can't rule out. And two, if the Democrats can counter this with their own vision for America, vague as it may be, with Biden as the nominee.
Yeah, and in this area in particular, we'll see. Like a democracy cannot survive or can't mean anything if one party takes every opportunity they have to undercut it in literally every way, legal, illegal, constitutional, unconstitutional, and then it passes to the other party, maybe, and they do absolutely nothing to stop that or to reverse that. And then we go back to the one party and they chip even more away at it. And that's what we've had. We had, Obama had effectively unified government for a period. Did we get a national, voting holiday? Did we get, we didn't get any of this stuff. All of what the pro-democracy activists, and we need to start talking about these because I know we only talk about pro-democracy activists in other countries, the bad countries that don't have their stuff together. No, we need pro-democracy activists here in the United States, people who actually care about voter suppression and gerrymandering and the manipulation of the census and a million other things. The effective poll taxes that they have, and they just sort of added one in terms of mail-in voting recently. The disenfranchisement in Florida of the felons who are recently given the ability to vote, all of that. We need to identify and respect what these activists are saying. And hopefully Biden will actually do something about it because unfortunately, when Obama was in power, he didn't do nearly enough.
Well, maybe we'll just scream about Russia instead. That seems to be the #1 threat to our democracy. Look.
Well, I would include that, sure.
No,
but there's a lot of stuff.
It's like 40th down the list of voting rights priorities that we need to be talking about right now. I think the Democrats went all in on that, which I don't think resonates with that many people, to be honest with you, when there are actually concrete threats that are daily threats to voting rights in the United States that just they don't fight on at all.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.